The 2023 Cologne Centurions season was weird.
62-3 the final count.
Blowout loss.
Takes off running. He's looking for the end zone.
Agonizing divisional rivalries.
Heydrich will throw to the end zone for the touchdown.
Divisional dominance from other teams that weren't them.
Und ich hoffe ebenfalls, dass wir uns nächste Woche wieder...
In the midst of these troubling times, there were standout players within this roster. DeJohn Owens was a borderline all-star in this year, notching 2 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles and 24 tackles. He was nominated to be an all-star but wasn't selected. He is widely regarded still as one of the best corners in the league today. Jared Jackson, a former IPP player, has moved on to the Barcelona Dragons for his 3rd season in the ELF. He's currently got 4 sacks in 6 games, but was unable to do this within Cologne's system. Jared Alman was an all-star in 2021, a rookie of the year, and has got 1,285 yards and 9 touchdowns in his career running back. Zachary Blair is a 2-time all-star. In his ELF career, he has 15 block kicks, over 170 tackles, 12 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, and is one of the best linebackers in the league still now. Darren Okungagwe is regarded as one of the best nickel and linebacker players in the league today. He's a 2023 Rookie of the Year nominee. He has 7 career sacks, is one of the best under 23 players in the league. Robinson at receiver was 7th in yards in 2022 with 5 less games than anyone else. He currently has 1,394 yards and 16 touchdowns in his ELF career. His play style is arguably one of the most fun and entertaining we've had. I think that he's probably one of my favourite receivers I've ever watched in the ELF. Paul Lenhart is a rising slot receiver who has 1,142 career yards, 8 career touchdowns, and has had 3 seasons in Cologne, but after this season will go on to the Frankfurt Galaxy. But today we're not going to talk about any of them, we're going to talk about Chad Walrond. It's no secret that I take inspiration from a lot of other creators when it regards to stat creators in basketball, Brett Coleman for American football and scouting, other art creators and art critique YouTubers, and for this one I took a lot of inspiration from the film Moneyball. If you haven't seen the film, the Oakland Athletics found value in players and led to one of the largest winning streaks in baseball history. Now, if this is your first time looking at American football in Europe, the Stuttgart Surge lost in the championship game in 2023.
Clock is going to be allowed to run all the way down. The Rhine Fire, victorious and unbeaten.
However, they went from one of the worst teams in the league history to a title contender within a year. Now, that could be a whole video in itself, but they took a lot of players from the Schwäbisch Hall Unicorns, as well as the coaching staff. Now, another part of that was finding diamonds in the rough within the ELF that teams were not using as effectively as possible. It was his athleticism and potential, those 2 things. We felt he was a young player who was only getting better. You can see on film his pure explosion and speed and athleticism. He brought the understanding of space and timing into the secondary as well. He wasn't the biggest name on the market because he was still young and up and coming. But we felt if we got him, there would be a lot of potential there. Now that's a quote I got from Jordan Newman. If you are unaware of Jordan Newman's impact in European American football, he is widely regarded as one of the best coaches in Europe today. That was absolutely instrumental to the Surge's turnover from bottom feeder to title contender. Now what exactly does the tape tell us? Now going in to Chad's evaluation, I thought that he was a speedster, a great athlete, but couldn't necessarily stand the field due to injuries and couldn't create turnovers for himself. I also received some backlash for saying he wasn't necessarily a sideline to sideline safety. Now all of these are interesting points of discussion. However, diving into the tape of Cologne, quickly realised that Chad isn't really a safety at all. Now for those who are unaware, I use a slightly simplified, it's only really simplified in the interior defensive line, version of PFF tracking. I do not care about the scheme. I do not care about the name on the back of the jersey. Where you are lined up is what I care about. And there is a diagram that I will gladly show people if they're interested about how I track these. As you can see, 42% of his time was spent as a slot corner, while only 36% of his snaps were taken in a position that I would call a safety. Of course, with PFF grades, there are going to be slight differences like left linebacker, left outside linebacker, bit of corner, and even a bit of left outside end. Now that is due to the position he lined up. He creeps slightly down before the snap. When the snap happens, he's on the outside end. That is what he gets categorized as. Regardless, a lot more slot cornerback than I was expecting. All of the talk out of the way, let's finally get into the tape. We're going to start with Cologne and then go on to Surge. The first part of his game I want to talk about from Cologne is his ball disruption. Now, he would secure the tackles after catches. Not an issue at all with Chad. But the problem would be that he wouldn't rip the ball out during the catch point. He wouldn't force incompletions very often. It did happen, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't something that was happening on a consistent basis when he was targeted, especially with bigger and more physically dominant receivers. Here's an example of Chad in the position of slot cornerback. He gets through the route, knives through the receiver, gets active on the hands, and ultimately forces the incompletion. Now, I had messaged Coach Newman after watching the tape on Chad Walrond, and it really did confirm what I was seeing. He is a fantastic player when it comes to reading the space, seeing receivers. His head movement is very good. He is a very good coverage safety. Now, that of course comes from him moving into the slot, playing a lot more coverage roles, using his speed to compete with people in the slot, using his athleticism and ball tracking to deal with people who are bigger and perhaps moving into the slot to try and cause a mismatch. My pre-assumption that his hips were poorer than some of his contemporaries may have been a little bit misguided, because he does have fluid movement and it all does come from his hips and his good footwork. This conversation with Newman confirmed to me that he was brought in to play a certain role, because they lost Goran Zek this offseason, and Chad Walrond and Goran Zek are not similar players. He was brought in as a transitional player. The scheme was built with him in mind. So he moved from slot corner to safety. It can't really be that big of a deal. Can it? Now, as it happens, quite a lot. So, why is this? Now, I think that Chad is probably one of the most underappreciated defensive backs in the entire league for his football IQ. Now, a slot and a safety, they're not that different. They both fall under the same umbrella of a defensive back. You might holler from Europe or America or wherever you're watching this. And to that, I say vision is very important for a safety. Vision is very important for decision making. When he's coming into the slot, he's on the line. He has maybe a 5 to 10 yard marker where he can see. He can see his receiver, which is usually a slot. He can see the outside guy. He might be able to see one of the tackles, potentially the quarterback and a running back. When they put him at safety, he can see the whole field. He can make better decisions. He can be more instinctual. He can rely more on his instincts. He can be more dynamic, more explosive to the ball. These are all things that we have seen while he's been at the Stuttgart Surge that we didn't necessarily see when he was in Cologne. Let's finally talk about Chad at the Surge and how they've used him differently to Cologne. Here is Chad's chart from his games I tried to Stuttgart Surge. 90% of his time is being spent in positions that I would categorize as a safety. That is incredible. From being primarily a slot corner to moving to a 90% safety role is a stark difference. Continuing the contrast, only 2% was really spent in a slot corner role, the others being made up of goal line situations and short yardage. So what's next? How can Chad go from a very, very great safety to an elite safety? What's going to get him to all-star? I think there are a few things, and there's still a few things that need to be cleaned up from Cologne. One thing that's got arguably better since he went to the Stuttgart Surge has been his movement. Now, of course, this was a strong point of his coming out of Cologne, but I would argue that it's got even better with the Stuttgart Surge. His hips look more fluid. His hands look more active on the receiver during the route. He's able to move people off of their intended direction a lot easier. He can make an impact. And we've seen that in his interceptions. He struggled with Cologne. Couldn't get him. That was a big thing of my scout report, was he's a safety that struggles to get interceptions. This season, he has not struggled to get interceptions at all. Already got 2. Got a big one on Munich that was on a great game where he got a sack as well. Absolutely phenomenal. Probably the best game I've seen him play as a professional. He looks like he's just stepped up on another level. And it is amazing to watch. As someone who's been a big fan of Chad for a long time, his strong points have just got even better. And you cannot tell me he doesn't look more comfortable in this scheme. Now here's some plays I want to play out as well. These are 2 plays, 2 from Cologne, 2 from Stuttgart. And let them play all the way through. Now these are very small details. Of course, this isn't a tackling issue. This isn't a box thing. He's good in a box. He's a solid tackler. We'll get to that in a minute. But the instincts and the vision that I mentioned a minute ago, and just how quick he comes down to that, how fast he recognizes the run, is so much different as a Stuttgart Surge. It's so much better because he's playing further back. He can read that a lot better. He can see the offensive line move. He's a very smart safety. He's able to hurt people with this. he already is. Like, this is a massive, massive difference in my eyes to where he was in Cologne. A massive improvement. Now, Chad's a good tackler. He is. He is a good tackler. There are many instances where he shows good motor, a good ability to get to the running back with good angles, as well as the receivers, not just in the backfield. However, there are some nitpicking issues. You know, sometimes he'll fly in for a tackle and he'll miss, or he won't completely wrap up. There are instances of this, but it's just more about consistency than anything. Forcing the ball out as well is still quite a recurring factor. Again, it has improved since he went to Stuttgart, but still not perfect. Still does struggle to rip the ball out at the catch point, and could add a lot to his interceptions and PBUs by doing so. These are more things to turn him into a great safety to an elite safety. If an elite safety can rip that ball out and no one's catching the ball on him, he will very quickly climb up the rankings and potentially be an all-star this season. I think that's a very real possibility that if he gets a couple more PBUs and interceptions this year, like he's on form to, he could be an all-star. Overall, Chad has just completely risen up my board ranks. I really have loved watching the tape of him. I didn't even get into how an elite of kick returner he is, just because I had so much to talk about as a defensive back. But he is elite in that, and possibly could be an all-star kick returner this year. And part of what made this a video I wanted to make was Chad was one of the first people that ever supported me with American football and making it what I do now. I used to run a page called Elite Britain. I made graphics and edits. He asked me to make an edit. He sent me some money, didn't have to. Chose to send me some money and supported me. And I'll never forget that. Or years ago. He probably didn't even remember it. But for me, that ingrained just a want for him to succeed. And he is succeeding. He's taking steps up. I think he's found a perfect scheme for him. The perfect team. He looks happier just on the field than he did in Cologne. He's not dealing with injuries as much. So hopefully he has better strength and conditioning. He's around people that are going to make him better in the football club. And I'm very, very happy for him. So this was a good video to make, an enjoyable one, a feel-good one. Put a lot of effort into the production of this one, so I wanted to take it a step up, take inspiration from these people that I like, and make something I can really be proud of, because this was someone that I, want to succeed, so I might as well make a video that shows how much I care about making the evaluations, and how much I care about making something special, So like I said, I follow a lot of art creators, I follow a lot of creative people, so this for me was just something to hammer that home. And this will do us here. It's been a long-awaited one. I had some anxiety. I'm going to be honest. I had some bad anxiety about, am I going to be able to make something that quantifies the weight that people have? Because I've been teasing this for a couple of weeks. People have been waiting for and asking for it. And people will be, I'm really excited for when you drop that Chad Walrond video. Some anxiety built up about that. But got through it. Kept working. Made a nice video, I think. I think it's a real good video. I got creative with shots. I wanted to put everything I've learned together from making these videos over the last couple months and make it into one special video, and that was good fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Let's go on to the next one. Next eval, probably going to be Digan Gomez, so look out for that one. I'll be teasing it. I'll be making the posters, making shorts, as probably this style of content. It's been a good ride so far, and this was a good one. Thank you very much. See you later. See you next time. Goodbye.